Hello and welcome to a brand new challenge video. I know I say this every time I make a video, but seriously, thank you so much for the support on the last video. I hope you'll stick around for my videos in the future. This is just the beginning. I ran a poll on my channel asking what you guys wanted to see next, and you voted for a Gen 5 challenge. So today we find out, can you beat Pokemon White version using only a MARACTUS? A big thanks goes to Colton Moore for suggesting this run. Remember, if I pick your suggestion, I'll give you a shout out at the beginning of the video, so write your suggestions down in the comments below. Be honest, some of you watching this video probably forgot that MARACTUS even existed. I know it's not the first Pokemon that comes to mind when I think of grass types. In fairness, MARACTUS' stats aren't actually that bad. Both its attack and special attack are usable, and it learns a few good moves via level up and TMs. However, being a pure grass type means that it has a lot of weaknesses and not the best type coverage. To make matters worse, a lot of the gyms in this game are actually particularly difficult for a grass type to deal with. We're going to have to beat bug, flying and ice types to name a few. Before we start, as usual, there are a few rules. I can only use MARACTUS in battle. I'll need a few HMs, so HM slavers are allowed, but again, only outside of battle. No items used in battle. I've had a lot of comments saying that I'm cheating by healing between battles, so just to clarify, I can heal between fights. Also, held items are allowed in this run. Okay, that's the rules done. Before we start, please consider leaving a like, it is greatly appreciated. Okay, have you liked the video? Good, let's begin. I start the game and pick the female character and name her Tomoko. As always, comment down below if you get the reference. I pick MARACTUS as my starter. I overwrite Snivy so that the type matchups for our rivals remain the same. Immediately we're challenged by both Bianca and Sharon. Bianca was a cakewalk because we start with the move Absorb, and Sharon isn't much different. His Tepig goes down in a few pecks. Did you know that MARACTUS learned Peck? Because I didn't. After getting the Pokedex we travel all the way to Striaton City. Before we get there though, we're challenged by Bianca again. Aside from gaining a new team member, her team is basically the same, so we beat her easily and arrive at Striaton City. Before we can challenge the gym, we're faced with yet another rival fight, Sharon this time, who also has two Pokemon now. Despite Tepig now having a super effective fire move, we win the battle relatively easily with a mixture of Peck and Absorb. We can finally challenge the first gym leader, who in our case is the fire type user Chili. I set up a few growths and hit with a Mega Drain which we recently learned, and it easily takes it out in one hit. Chili's last Pokemon is his Pansear, which is the reason I set up a few growths in the first place. He outspeeds and sets up a workup as I hit with a Peck, which only does about half. Next turn, Pansear goes for Incinerate, which does about half of our HP, but it burns the Oran Berry that I had held. We hit back with another Peck, which leaves it with what must be 1 HP. He goes for a Potion as we hit another Peck, which brings it back down to red health. We're hit with another Incinerate, which leaves us with just 3 HP. 1 Peck is enough to end the battle, winning us the first badge. I begin to travel towards the location of the next gym, but we're stopped yet again by Sharon. His team is pretty much the same, so I'll spare you this one. Once again we win without a problem. After dealing with Team Plasma and fighting N, we arrive in Nacrene City, the home of normal type gym leader Lenora. This gym actually ended up being pretty tough. Her first Pokemon Herdier is easy enough to deal with, but it's her last Pokemon Watchog that causes a problem. It's faster than us and always either puts us to sleep with Hypnosis or KOs us with Retaliate. To counter this, I train up to level 22 and learn Needle Arm and equip a Chesto Berry to MARACTUS and try again. First up is Herdier, so I set up a couple of growths as I get hit with a takedown. I hit back with a Mega Drain though, which actually one-shots Herdier. We heal back a lot of our HP too. Next up is the Watchog. We're actually able to outspeed it now and hit with another Mega Drain. Watchog puts us to sleep, but the Chesto Berry we equipped wakes us right back up. And one more Mega Drain takes out Watchog, which wins us the second badge. On the way through Pinwheel Forest, we find the big root item. This increases the HP you heal from draining moves like Mega Drain, so I give it to MARACTUS. We deal with Team Plasma once again and arrive in Castelia City, the home of Bug-type gym leader Berg. This was one of the gyms I was really not looking forward to. Not only are Bug-types super effective against grass, but my grass moves aren't very effective against his Bug-types, so I wasn't looking forward to it to say the least. He starts off with a Whirlipede. I outspeed and set up a growth as he uses Screech, lowering my defense. I hit with a Peck and get a really lucky critical hit, which takes out Whirlipede from full health. We grow to level 26 and learn the move Giga Drain. I decide to replace Needle Arm as we now have 2 moves that benefit from our held item. Next up is Dwebble. I outspeed and hit with a Giga Drain, which is enough to one-hit KO. Berg's final Pokemon is Leavanny. He outspeeds but goes for a Razor Leaf, so it hardly does any damage. We hit back with a Peck, which is 4 times super effective and it deals massive damage. Leavanny goes for Protect twice in a row for some reason, and the second one fails, meaning we're able to take out Leavanny with one more Peck. That gym was nowhere near as bad as I was expecting it to be. As we go to leave Castelia City, we're challenged by Bianca. Not gonna lie, she's still a total pushover. Giga Drain one-shots pretty much all of her Pokemon with the exception of Pansear, so we easily take the win. I hope you like rival battles because we've got another one coming up right now, and this time it's Sharon. He starts off with a P-Dove, so I set up a Growth and then proceed to one-hit KO with Giga Drain. Sharon sends out Pignite next. I go for another Giga Drain and it does massive damage, but Pignite is able to hang on with a sliver of health as it eats a Citrus Berry and goes for a Flame Charge which deals decent damage to us and raises his speed. We hang on with just 7 HP after the Sandstorm damage and we're luckily still able to outspeed, so one more Giga Drain finishes it off. Next up is Pansage. I go for Giga Drain again and one-hit KO, which also heals us up a decent amount. Sharon's last Pokemon is Liepard. Surprisingly we outspeed and one Giga Drain is enough to take the win. Now we've beaten our rivals, we finally arrive in Nimbasa City, the home of Electric-type gym leader Elisa. Oh yeah, we also beat N, who didn't pose any sort of threat, so it's time to face the gym leader. I was a little bit worried about this gym because she has 2 Emolga which are part flying type, but it wasn't actually as bad as I had feared. She leads off with one of her Emolga and outspeeds us, hitting a Pursuit which hardly does anything as I set up a Growth. Emolga goes for Aerial Ace this time, which does a decent chunk of damage, but we tank the hit and hit back with a Giga Drain, doing well over half and healing up most of our HP. We take another Aerial Ace and finish off Emolga with one more Giga Drain. Next up is our second Emolga. Once again we get outsped and hit with an Aerial Ace, which brings us down to fairly low health. We hit back with a Giga Drain though, which does more than half and heals us up a bit. I didn't actually go to the Pokemon Center before this fight, so I only have one Giga Drain power point left, so I go for Mega Drain this time. We're hit with another Aerial Ace, but we survive and finish off the second Emolga. Elisa's final Pokemon is Zebstrika. We get outsped and hit with a Flame Charge, which is super effective, but we take the hit with just 3 HP left and hit back with our final Giga Drain. Unfortunately though, it's not quite enough to take it out. I go for Mega Drain this time as she uses a Hyper Potion. Unfortunately, our Mega Drain does under half. For some reason, Zebstrika decides to go for Quick Attack this time, which does hardly anything. I hit another Mega Drain and get a lucky critical hit, taking out Zebstrika and winning us the fight. That could have gone a lot worse. We cross the Driftvale drawbridge and arrive in Driftvale City. We rumble Team Plasma once again and take on the 5th gym leader, the ground type user Clay. Finally, a gym that MARACTUS is actually good against. He starts off with a Krokorok. I set up a Growth as he hits with a Bulldoze. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does lower our speed. We're slower than it now, so he hits us with a Swagger, which raises our attack but confuses us. Thankfully we don't hit ourselves and hit a Giga Drain, which one-shots the Krokorok. Next up is his ace, Excadrill. He outspeeds and sets up a Home Claws. Luckily we snap out of confusion and hit with a Giga Drain, which deals about 70%. We're hit with a Rock Slide, which deals decent damage to us, but we survive and finish off Excadrill with one more Giga Drain. Clay's final Pokemon is a Palpitoad, which is 4 times weak to grass. He wastes a turn using Aqua Ring, so one Giga Drain is obviously enough to KO, winning us the 5th gym badge. Alright, it's time to leave Driftvale. Oh, what's this? Another rival fight? Skip! We make our way through Chargestone Cave. On the way, MARACTUS learns the move Petal Dance. While it locks you into using it for 2 or 3 turns and then confuses you afterwards, its base 120 power cannot be ignored, so I decide to forget Mega Drain. Just as we're about to leave the cave, we're challenged by N. He was actually quite difficult this time. He starts off with a Boldore, so I do the usual and set up a Growth as he hits with a Smackdown. I go for Giga Drain and bring it down to 1 HP thanks to its ability Sturdy. We're hit with another Smackdown, but I go for Peck to finish it off. Next up is Joltik, so I go for my last Giga Drain and it lives with 1 HP. We're hit with a Bug Bite, but we take the hit and finish off Joltik with a Peck. Next up is Ferroseed, who's 4 times resistant to grass moves. I go for Petal Dance, which does about half as we get hit by his Iron Barb's ability. He wastes a turn though using Iron Defense. We hit another Petal Dance, and he also lives with 1 HP.
Please stop.
This is really starting to become a running theme. We're hit with a Metal Claw, which deals decent damage, and the 3rd turn of Petal Dance finishes off Ferroseed, but we do get confused. N's last Pokemon is a Clink. I go for Petal Dance, but we hit ourselves in confusion. And we live with 1 HP. Clint goes for Gear Grind. And he misses. I go for one more Petal Dance and luckily snap out of confusion. Clint gets knocked out in one hit and we win. Just. We arrive in Mistralton City, but before we can take on the gym we have to climb Celestial Tower. On the way up, MARACTUS learns the move Sucker Punch. I'm planning to replace Peck soon with another move, so even though it's been quite useful so far, I decide to replace Growth, as I think that having a priority move is going to be really useful in the future. Alright, it's now time to take on the 6th gym leader, Skylar. This was yet another gym I was really worried about, but this actually ended up being one of the easier gyms somehow, much to my surprise. She starts off with the Swoobat. Immediately, Sucker Punch proves itself to be useful, as we move first and one-hit KO the Swoobat. Next up is Unpheasant, so I go for Giga Drain and it actually does about 50% of its health. Unpheasant could have gone for an Air Slash or something here, but instead she decides that the best move to use is definitely Leer.
You a genius.
One more Giga Drain finishes it off. Skylar's last Pokemon is Swanna, who isn't actually resistant to grass thanks to it being part water. So I go for Petal Dance and much to my surprise it is actually enough to one-hit KO. Somehow I was able to win this gym without taking any damage. I walk down the runway and find the TM for Aerial Ace. This is the last move I'll be teaching MARACTUS. It's roughly twice as powerful as Peck and it can't miss, so it should definitely be a good move to have around. We make our way towards Twist Mountain where we get challenged by Sharon, again. His team hasn't changed much aside from a couple of his Pokemon evolving, so I'll skip over this. We make our way through Twist Mountain and arrive in Icarus City, the home of Ice-type gym leader Bryson. This was yet another gym I was not looking forward to. He starts off with a Vanillish, so I outspeed and hit with a Petal Dance which is enough to one-hit KO. Next up is Beartic. Petal Dance hits for a second time and does more than half of its HP, but we become confused as he goes for Swagger, so basically he just gives us a free attack boost. I go for Giga Drain this time and thankfully we don't hit ourselves with confusion and it's enough to take it out. Bryson's last Pokemon is Cryogonal, which has a really good special defense stat, so I decide to go for Sucker Punch. We don't hit ourselves and thanks to our boosted attack, Sucker Punch is a one-hit KO. Yet another gym I had nothing to worry about. We deal with a few more of Team Plasma shenanigans and head for Opelucid City, the home of the final gym leader. Before that though, yet another rival battle. This game just loves throwing these at you, doesn't it? Bianca's not actually that weak this time, but it's still not a challenging fight. Her Stoutland faints in 2 Giga Drains. Simisear goes down in 2 hits thanks to Petal Dance. Though fully evolved, her starter Samurott is weak to grass, so one Petal Dance is enough to take it out. Her last Pokemon is Musharna, who just survives a Petal Dance and puts us to sleep with Hypnosis. We wake up relatively quickly though, and despite her using a full restore, we're able to finish it off with 2 more Giga Drains, winning us the fight. We arrive in Opelucid City where we can take on our 8th and final gym leader, Iris, the Dragon Trainer. Again, I wasn't too confident going into this fight, but it actually ended up being easier than I expected. She leads off with a Fracture. I outspeed and hit with a Giga Drain for about half of its health. Fracture sets up a Dragon Dance which boosts attack and speed, but surprisingly enough I'm actually still faster, so I go for one more Giga Drain and take it out. Next up is Druddigon, who has the Rough Skin ability, so I go for Giga Drain as it's not a contact move, while for some reason Petal Dance is. I get a lucky critical hit which brings it down to about 1/3 as he goes for Revenge. It does a decent amount of damage, but we go for Giga Drain one more time and knock it out. Iris' last Pokemon is a Haxorus, which has almost as much attack as a Groudon, so I am a little bit worried about this. I outspeed and hit with a Petal Dance, which does about 50% as she hits back with the Dragon Tail, which does a good amount of damage. We live the hit though, and thanks to only having one Pokemon on the party, we don't switch out, so one more Petal Dance is enough to take the victory. All that's left now is for us to get through Victory Road and take on the Pokemon League. Or it would be, but we have one more rival battle ahead of us. Sharon challenges us to a battle and for once, I actually lost to him. His Unpheasant outspeeds me and his Air Slash 2-hit KOs us. Even on the times I manage to get past the Unpheasant, his Emboar is bulky and can finish us off. So I have no choice but to grind up a few levels. I'm going to need them for the remaining battles anyway. I do a bit of grinding and thanks to the lucky egg item and shaken grass, we're able to level up surprisingly quickly. I get to level 65 and we face Sharon once again. This time, things go a lot smoother. His Unpheasant goes down in 2 Giga Drains and we don't even take damage as he goes for Taunt instead of Air Slash. Next up is Emboar. I go for Aerial Ace, which brings it all the way down to red health as he hits back with a Flamethrower. We just about take the hit and survive with 20 HP. I go for Giga Drain to finish it off and heal back a little bit of health in the process. His next Pokemon is Liepard and surprisingly we outspeed it and Giga Drain is a one-hit KO. Sharon's final Pokemon is Simisage. We're faster than it, and one aerial ace is enough to win us the battle. We make it through Victory Road and arrive at the Pokemon League. I decide to try and beat the Elite Four at my current level. First up is Chantel, the Ghost type trainer. She leads off with a Kofagrigus. It's really slow, so I outspeed and hit with a Giga Drain. It does a really good amount of damage as she hits back with a Shadow Ball for a small amount. One more Giga Drain is enough to finish it off. Next up is Chandelure. I'm really wary of this thing's fire moves, so I go for Sucker Punch. It's super effective and is actually enough to one-shot it. However, her Flame Body ability does take effect, which burns us. Next up is Jellicent, who's part water, so I go for Giga Drain. It just barely survives and hits back with a Shadow Ball. I know she's going to heal, so I go for Petal Dance as it's more powerful. She does heal, but Petal Dance is enough to take it out from full health. Chantel's last Pokemon is Golurk, who's also weak to grass, so one Petal Dance knocks it out, winning us the first battle. I heal up in between fights. The next up is Dark type user Grimsley. He leads off with a Scrafty, so I go for Aerial Ace as it's super effective. It does more than half as he hits back with a super effective Poison Jab. Luckily we don't get poisoned and one Giga Drain finishes it off. Next up is Bisharp, who resists all 4 of my moves. I go for Giga Drain, but it doesn't even do half as he hits back with a super effective X-Scissor. I didn't want to lock myself into Petal Dance just yet, so I go for another Giga Drain. We heal back some HP and get hit with another X-Scissor. I know he's going to use a full restore, so I decide now is the best time to use Petal Dance. It does a lot of damage, so one more is enough to take it out. However, we do get confused. Next up is Liepard, so I go for Giga Drain to get some health back, but he goes for Fake Out, which flinches us, leaving MARACTUS on red health. I go for Giga Drain and thankfully don't hit myself in confusion. Giga Drain is actually enough to one-hit KO. This also puts us back to roughly half health. Grimsley's final Pokemon is Krookodile, who's weak to grass. I go for Petal Dance, but unfortunately get hit in confusion as he hits us with a foul play. We just survive the hit, and next turn we snap out of confusion and one-shot the Krookodile with a Petal Dance. That was a lot closer than I expected.
Just as a side note, I apologise if my voice sounds a bit different for the rest of this video. I actually came down with a cold before I could finish the recording for this video, so yeah, the rest of the video is going to sound like this. Next up is Psychic Trainer Caitlin. She starts off with a Reuniclus, so I go for Sucker Punch. It just barely fails to take it out as she hits back with a Psychic for decent damage. Obviously she's going to use a full restore, so I go for Giga Drain this time and get some health back. It does over half though, so I go for it one more time and take it out. Next up is Sigilyph. This thing is quite scary as it's fast and part flying type, but thankfully I go for Sucker Punch and it's enough to one-hit KO. Next up is Musharna, which is another bulky Psychic type. I go for Sucker Punch, but it too lives on red health and hits back with a Psychic. Once again she full restores, so once again I go for Giga Drain, dealing roughly half. I go for Sucker Punch again and easily finish it off. Caitlin's last Pokemon is Gothitelle. I go for Sucker Punch, but it also survives with just red health and hits back with a Psychic. She doesn't use a full restore this time though, so one more Giga Drain is enough to take the win. We grow to level 69.
Finally a 69 Lemao joke.
And continue on to the final member of the Elite Four, Marshall, the fighting type user. He starts off with Throw. I go for Aerial Ace, which does over half as it hits with a Stone Edge. We take the hit easily though, and one more Aerial Ace knocks it out. Next up is Mean Chow. I expected it to be faster, but we actually outspeed, and one Aerial Ace is enough to one-hit KO. Next up is Sork. I'm pretty sure this thing has Sturdy, so I go for Giga Drain to get some health back. I end up getting a critical hit though, which activates Sturdy. He goes for Karate Chop though, which hardly does anything. I know he's going to heal this turn, so I go for another Giga Drain, which brings it back down to red health. I decide to go for Aerial Ace this turn as he heals again. It's enough to bring it down to Sturdy range once again. This time he doesn't heal, so one more Aerial Ace finishes it off. Marshall's final Pokemon is Conkeldurr. We outspeed obviously and hit with an Aerial Ace, which does over half as he hits back with a Hammer Arm, which does decent damage to us. He lowers his speed even further though, and one more Aerial Ace is enough to KO, winning us the final battle of the Elite Four. It's time to face the champion, or at least it would have been, but we have to fight N. He makes us catch Zekrom, which obviously I can't use. I have no choice but to catch it though, and it automatically puts Zekrom at the front of the party. He sends out Reshiram first, so I just waste turns throwing Pokeballs until we get knocked out. He actually ended up using Hyper Beam to take us out, so MARACTUS gets a free hit. It was at this point though I realised I'd made a terrible mistake. I should probably have played Pokemon Black version, as fighting a Zekrom here would have been so much easier than Reshiram. But oh well, I guess it makes for a more entertaining video. I go for Aerial Ace and it hardly does anything, so I decide my best bet is to go for Sucker Punch. I actually get a critical hit which just barely fails to knock it out, and Reshiram hits back with a Fusion Flare, and I think it goes without saying, we do not survive. I decide to do some grinding, a lot of grinding, all the way to level 80, and try again. Things go a little bit better, but still badly. I actually managed to take out the Reshiram thanks to a lucky critical hit with Sucker Punch, but next up is Vanillux. It survives the Giga Drain and finishes off MARACTUS with a Frost Breath. Not gonna lie, I thought I'd never be able to beat this battle, but the next day I grinded up a couple more levels and tried again, and this time things actually went my way. First out is Reshiram. Sucker Punch does more than half now as he hits with a Fusion Flare for massive damage. One more Sucker Punch finishes off Reshiram, and next is Vanillux. I go for Giga Drain, which isn't quite enough to take it out. Vanillux goes for Blizzard but misses. We definitely would not have survived that if it hit. I go for another Giga Drain as he uses a full restore. I bring it back down to red health while healing up most of our own HP and then take it out with an Aerial Ace. Next up is Klinklang. I go for Giga Drain, which much to my surprise is a one shot, but then he reveals himself to be a Zoroark and then faints immediately. Next up is the real Klinklang. I go for another Giga Drain and despite it being a resisted hit, it does over half. Klinklang hits back with a metal sound which lowers our special defense. One more Giga Drain takes it out, and next up is Archeops. I do not want to get hit by a flying move, so I go for Sucker Punch to hit first. Archeops survives with a sliver of health and hits back with an Acrobatics, but thanks to his ability to Defeatist, it doesn't do all that much damage. I was sure he was going to heal here, so I go for a Giga Drain, but he doesn't, and it actually turns out I'm actually faster than it anyway, so Giga Drain takes it out. N's last Pokemon is Caracosta, who's 4 times weak to grass. I go for Giga Drain, and needless to say, it's a one-hit.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yep, gotta love Sturdy. He survives with 1 HP and hits back with a Stone Edge. It doesn't do too much damage though, and one more Giga Drain knocks it out, winning us the battle. However, N isn't the final battle in the main game. We now have to face the true final boss, Ghetsis. He leads off with a Cofagrigus. I go for Sucker Punch, but he decides to go for Toxic, and this basically sealed our fate. We managed to take out the Cofagrigus, but his next Pokemon, Hydreigon, easily takes us out. I try again though, and this time I go for Petal Dance, which is actually enough to one-hit KO the Cofagrigus. Ghetsis sends out Hydreigon again, and I'm fearing the worst. I outspeed it and I hit with a Petal Dance. And we get a lucky critical hit. Hydreigon goes down in one hit, but we do get confused. Next up is Seismitoad. Unfortunately we hit ourselves in confusion and then get hit with a super effective Sludge Wave. It brings us down to about half. Luckily we don't hit ourselves this time and hit a Giga Drain, which is obviously going to be a one shot. It also heals up a lot of our HP too. Next up is the Electros. I managed to avoid hitting myself again, and Giga Drain almost one shots it. He hits back with a super effective Flamethrower, but we take the hit easily. Ghetsis uses a full restore as we go for another Giga Drain, bringing it back down to red health. We snap out of confusion and take out Electros with one more Giga Drain. And next up is Bouffalant. I'm a little bit worried that this might have the Sap Sipper ability, which makes it immune to grass type attacks and raises the attack stat, so I instead decide to go for Sucker Punch. It does over half as Bouffalant hits with a powerful head charge. It does a good amount of damage but also does a decent amount of recoil to himself. I go for Sucker Punch one more time and take out Bouffalant. It's down to Ghetsis' last Pokemon, Bisharp. I go for Giga Drain, which does over half. He hits back with an X-Scissor, but we take the hit, and one more Giga Drain is enough to faint Bisharp. We win the battle, and beat Pokemon White version using only a MARACTUS. This challenge wasn't actually as difficult as I expected it to be. MARACTUS proved itself to actually be a decent Pokemon. Sure, its coverage wasn't great, but its moves like Petal Dance and Sucker Punch actually ended up being really useful. The end fight was a real brick wall though. As soon as I remembered I had to fight a Reshiram, I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but MARACTUS pulled through. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this challenge. The next challenge video is going to be something completely different, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. If you enjoyed the video, then please consider leaving a like, and comment down below with what challenge I should take on next. Oh, and thanks again to Colton for suggesting this run. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.